Welcome to Chapter 9. For Chapter 9, we're covering forms, making our website a little more interactive. First things first, I want you to understand the form workflow. This consists of a planning stage, a coding stage, and a testing stage. And I'll go over what these are in just a moment. First thing, when you're planning a form, you want to make sure you know what the form is going to do. Basically, what information you need to gather from it. What is the form going to do? Where is it going to go? And how is it going to gather that information? So the first thing that you want to keep in mind is, what should the form do? Is it a form to collect information, a form to subscribe to an email list, or a form to process an order? All of these are possible examples. You can also have an account sign up or other items. There are a lot of things that forms can do, and the first thing you should keep in mind is what the form is going to do when you create it. Next is, where should the form go? We will not cover the dynamic form handlers in this course. That's a little more advanced than what we're covering, but this course is going to be covering exactly how to create the forms to send them to a form handler. So basically, where should it go? If it's a creation of an account, it should go to an account processor. If it's a subscription to an email list, it should go to an email subscription script. Or if it's something along the lines of processing something in a database, it should go to a form processor to process the database record. What is the purpose of the form? Why is it collecting information? Does the information that is collected need to go somewhere? Basically, why are you creating this form? And do you need everything? This is more of an advanced technique once you get into the practice of creating forms, but when you're actually adding all these fields and these different areas for information for people to provide, you should keep in mind if you need to ask everything that you want to in order for the form to work. If you only need the email address, do you need the person's name, physical address, phone number, or even cell phones for you to just to collect the email address? Once you get into creating forms, hopefully you have a better idea about what you should be asking once you start creating them. The form workflow for coding a form. You first must determine what you need. Basically, once you have all the techniques and the concepts of the forms, you need to know exactly what you need in order to build the form. Next, where will the form go, aka the form handler? There are many form handler languages such as PHP, Python, Perl, etc., and these will take the information from the form and process it according to the information being provided. How will the form be validated? There are two different versions. You have client side, which is on the client's side of things, basically their browser and their computer. We'll be covering that more in this course. And then there is server side. That's a little more advanced than what we're going to get into in this course, but basically the form handler in PHP, Python, Perl, ASP, or anything else, that will be on the server side once you send the data from the form to the form handler. And lastly, where will the client go after the form? What will happen once the information has been processed? To a thank you page, to a confirmation page, to a subscription email? There are many different ways to send someone to a different format of a form versus just sending them back to the form itself and saying thank you. When you are testing a form, you must keep in mind that there are two different versions of testing. The first one is functionality testing. Basically, you want to test in browsers. An absolute minimum would be Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Edge, Android browsers, and iPhone browsers. You want to make sure that the form you're creating looks and operates the same way in all of these browsers. If it doesn't, then you need to make sure that there is some kind of backup or some kind of fallback so that the form can be used by anyone. You also want to make sure the items show up as expected. If checkboxes and radio buttons don't show up where they need to be, then you need to make sure you code that appropriately so that it can be resized, reformatted, or even rearranged based on how the browser is behaving. Next is usability testing. This is a little different than functionality testing because you are actually testing for the user. Is your form easy to use? Is it easy to navigate? Is it easy to understand? Basically, you want to make sure that when this form is being used by anyone, they can understand what to click on, how to click on things, and how to navigate from field to field without having to use a very complicated method. Just because it's obvious to you doesn't mean it's obvious to others. Just because something to you makes a whole lot of sense, your standard user may not think that way and may not operate the form the same way you do. So keep in mind that when you're designing these forms for public use. That's all for this first video. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit more about form elements and form fields about creating your first form. If you have any questions, please let me know via email or on Twitter, and I'll get back to you with the best possible answer.